The ballroom shimmered like a dream Elena no longer belonged to. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen rain above, scattering fragments of light across the polished marble floor. Laughter filled the air, rich, effortless laughter that belonged to people who hadn't had their hearts broken. Elena stood near the edge of the crowd, clutching her champagne flute, wishing it were something stronger. Across the room, her ex-fiancé, Daniel, looked devastatingly handsome in his tailored tuxedo. His hand rested on the waist of his new bride, Lila, the same woman who had been her bridesmaid, her best friend, until betrayal shattered everything. Elena had promised herself she wouldn't come, that she didn't need to prove anything. But when the invitation arrived, wrapped in gold and arrogance, she couldn't resist. She told herself she would show him she had moved on. But standing there, watching them dance beneath a swirl of rose petals, she realized how empty that lie was. Her heart squeezed painfully in her chest. Every toast to their eternal love was another twist of the knife. Around her, old acquaintances whispered behind manicured hands. Poor Elena, still alone, still broken. The humiliation burned through her, hotter than grief. And then she saw him. Adrian Blackwell. Even among the city's elite, his presence commanded attention. He stood at the bar, tall and composed, a black suit molding perfectly to his broad shoulders. His reputation preceded him, the billionaire CEO who built his empire from nothing, whose name alone could make investors tremble. His expression was unreadable, his jaw sharp as if carved from stone, eyes dark and assessing as they swept the room. For a moment, Elena forgot to breathe. He didn't belong here either. He was a guest of the groom's father, attending out of obligation. Yet in the midst of laughter and luxury, he looked utterly detached, as if he'd rather be anywhere else. An idea sparked. A wild, desperate, dangerous idea. If she walked out now, Daniel would think she was still the same girl who cried when he left. But if she stayed, if she acted like she'd moved on, maybe she could rewrite the story. And who better to help her than the most untouchable man in the room? Elena set her glass down, straightened her shoulders, and whispered to herself, "You can do this." Then she started walking toward Adrian Blackwell. Adrian Blackwell noticed her before she even reached him. Most women approached him with calculated smiles and glittering eyes, but this one was different. Her steps were hesitant, her fingers trembling slightly as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. There was a fragility to her, yet something fierce glimmered beneath it, like a storm restrained by sheer willpower. Elena stopped in front of him, her pulse hammering so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Up close, he was even more intimidating, tall, with that effortless kind of power that didn't need to be announced. His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. "Miss," he asked smoothly, the word low, velvety, and commanding all at once. Her mouth went dry. "Can you?" She hesitated, then blurted, "Can you pretend to be my date, for just one day?" Adrian blinked, the faintest flicker of surprise crossing his face. Then came a small, amused curve of his lips. "That's not something I hear every day. I know it sounds insane," she rushed out. "My ex-fiancé is getting married today. She glanced toward the dance floor where Daniel and his bride glowed under the chandeliers. "I need him to think I'm fine. That I've moved on, even if it's a lie." Adrian followed her gaze, understanding dawning in his eyes. He studied her face for a long moment, her trembling chin, the brave front she wore like armor. Then he lifted his glass, swirling the amber liquid inside. "So, you want me to make him jealous?" Her cheeks burned. "I just need to survive this night without breaking." Something softened in his expression, a flicker of empathy buried beneath that cool exterior. "You're asking a stranger to lie for you," he said, voice dropping lower. "Yes," she whispered, "but I picked the right stranger." The corner of his mouth twitched into a half smile. "Careful, sweetheart, I don't do anything halfway." He set down his drink, straightened his cufflinks, and extended his hand to her. Elena stared at it, hesitant. "Does that mean you'll do it?" He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "For tonight," he murmured, "I'm yours." Her fingers slipped into his, and in that instant, beneath the glimmering lights and whispers of music, Elena felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The game had begun. The effect was instant. The moment Adrian Blackwell placed his hand at the small of Elena's back, the entire ballroom seemed to turn its head. Conversations paused mid-sentence, even the music felt quieter. The infamous CEO, who was known for never attending social events unless strictly necessary, was now standing beside a woman no one recognized, his touch possessive yet intimate. Elena's skin burned where his palm rested. "They're staring," she whispered, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "That's the point," Adrian murmured, his voice a low rumble that brushed against her ear. "Smile wider. Let him see what he lost." She did. She lifted her chin, met Daniel's stunned gaze across the room, and smiled, radiant, confident, heartbreak perfectly masked. For the first time all evening, Daniel wasn't looking at his new bride. He was looking at her. Adrian leaned closer, his breath grazing her temple. "Good, he's watching." Then, before she could react, he brushed a gentle kiss against her skin. The touch sent a shock through her body, warm and steady, like he wasn't pretending at all. A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. Elena heard snippets. "Who is she? Blackwell brought a date. She must be someone special." Adrian didn't flinch under the scrutiny. Instead, he tightened his hold slightly, as if to say let them talk. He led her gracefully onto the dance floor just as a slow song began. Her heart tripped over itself as he guided her, one hand firm on her waist, the other clasping her trembling fingers. "You can relax," he said quietly. "I don't bite." "Not what I've heard," she managed, earning a low, surprised chuckle from him. Daniel and Lila danced a few feet away, but the glow in their faces had faltered. Elena caught the faint crease of irritation on Daniel's brow, the way his bride followed his gaze toward her. Satisfaction surged through her chest, mingled with something far more dangerous. Because the longer Adrian held her, the less it felt like an act. His eyes lingered on her lips a moment too long. His thumb traced slow circles on her back. And when she finally looked up at him, her breath caught, not because of who he was, but because, for one dizzying moment, she forgot why they were pretending at all. The night air outside the hotel was crisp and cool, a welcome contrast to the heat and noise of the ballroom. The city lights shimmered against the dark sky, and for the first time all evening, Elena could finally breathe. Adrian stood beside her on the marble steps, his jacket now draped over her shoulders. It was warm, smelling faintly of cedar and something expensive she couldn't name. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was charged, humming with the kind of tension that made her pulse race. She turned to him, clutching the lapels of his jacket. "You didn't have to stay that long," she said softly. "I didn't mean to keep you the entire night." Adrian's gaze flicked toward her, calm but intense. "You asked me to be your date, not your decoy. I take my roles seriously." A small laugh escaped her, surprising even herself. "You were perfect. Everyone believed it." She paused. "Even me." His lips quirked into that infuriatingly charming half-smile. "You make it sound like that's a bad thing." She looked away, cheeks warm. "You don't even know me. Why would you do all this?" Adrian's expression softened, though his voice remained low and measured. "Maybe I saw something I recognized," he said. "Someone pretending to be fine when she's breaking inside." Her heart twisted at his words. There was something about the way he said it, so quietly, so honestly, that stripped away her defenses. "You make it sound like you know what that feels like," she whispered. He met her gaze, eyes shadowed. "I do." They stood there for a long moment, the hum of the city filling the space between them. Somewhere deep down, Elena knew this was supposed to end here. She would thank him, return his jacket, and walk away. But her feet didn't move. When Adrian finally spoke again, his tone had changed, softer, more dangerous. "If you ever need to pretend again," he said, stepping closer, "call me. But next time, maybe it won't be pretending." Her breath caught as his fingers brushed her cheek, a fleeting touch that sent warmth down to her spine. As his car pulled away moments later, Elena stood alone beneath the streetlights, her heart still racing. What began as an act of desperation had become something far more complicated. She had wanted revenge, but what she found instead was a spark she couldn't ignore.